Welcome to It's All in Your Head podcast. I'm Michelle Walker, and I'm here with my colleague Tara Ray, and this is episode 17. Today we're going to be talking about integrity and how that affects your mental health and what it is. So Tara, how do you feel when I talk about integrity? What's that thought? What does that bring up for you?
There's a phrase that I heard. Well, it's a couple things. So the first thing I think about is I talk a lot with young people about legacy or what people will say about you when you leave the room. So when you say integrity, that's the first thing that comes to mind, that we're talking about the impression that we leave on someone. And there's also a quote that says, integrity is what you do when no one's looking. So I think about that. It's who you are at the core of your being and making that be someone that you can be proud of and that you would consider to be respectable.
Okay, it comes up for me in my sessions with clients when I'm helping them to recognize that we have to be the person that we talk about, that it's not okay just to say one thing and then do another. And especially in the parenting role, we can't say to our kids, do as I say and not as I do. Or situations where, I had a client years ago who would get really upset at the people around him who were not starting a business or being more ambitious in their life. And yet I would say to him, okay, are you doing those things? Well, no, and ask him, well, why? Why are you not doing those things? And it really is about that, about being the person that you say you are, in my opinion. There's a lecture that I like to quote. It was done by a professor at a university, I think in Minnesota. I can't remember for sure because this has been about 10 years ago. And he was a math professor, but he would give these life lessons during his lecture. And what he would do is, because he became so well known for his life lectures, people would just sit in the back of his lecture hall all the time and listen to his life lessons. And so he became famous that way. Well, he developed cancer, and it was four-stage cancer when they found it, so he was not going to be able to treat it. And he decided to give what he called the last lecture, and it was recorded on YouTube. And one of the things he said in his lecture that I loved, he's talking to women as they're dating, and he said, women, ignore everything he says and only watch what he does. And he said it like 3 times just to make sure that they heard it. Ignore everything he says and only watch what he does. And he said to become a man, he had to understand that concept.
That's awesome, because when you mention parenting, I say that to parents a lot too, because growing up, we're from a little bit older generation, and I will be told all the time, do as I say and not as I do. Well, that never made sense because we learn from what we see people doing, and we typically do what we see. So I've always asked parents when they're having these conversations about their kids and the kids' behaviors, how do kids learn? Is it by what you say or by what they see? And they always answer correctly, it's by what they see. So stop trying to tell them to do something that you're not doing or willing to do. And it has nothing to do with being an adult, because I would hear people say, I'm grown, I can do what I want to do. And I would say that's the first sign that you're not, because all grown-ups know we can't ever do what it is we want to do.
That's the first sign you're not. I love it.
Yes.
I'm going to start using that on my clients.
Yep.
But no, it's absolutely true, because we don't get to do everything we want to do. We're accountable to people around us,
I can't drive 100 miles an hour on the freeway, even though I might want to. I can't run around outside now. I wouldn't want to do this, but I can't run around outside nude. That's against the law. We have things that we're governed by. So that is a myth that when you become a grown up or an adult, you'll be able to do whatever it is you want to do.
Yeah, and I see this kind of play out, especially as I'm helping people a lot to overcome what we call addictive behaviors. And sometimes addictive behaviors aren't just drugs and alcohol. Sometimes people can be addicted to control, superiority, they can be addicted to drama. And I try to help them using a 12-step kind of format,
Mhm.
even though it's only technically for drugs and alcohol, it works on personality issues too. And as people are going through this, and the thing is, if anybody wants me to kind of review that, what a 12-step program is really the hard part is really just doing a moral inventory of yourself, going back to all the people that you've hurt, things, even yourself, ways that you've hurt yourself, and writing it all down and then trying to repair it, to really go through, go back, apologize to people, to try and make amends, and to really clean out a person's heart, like clean out your heart.
Mhm.
And in doing that, you have to go back and make amends to people, even from years ago, that you've harmed in some way. Nobody wants to do this. It's a really difficult process to do. And yet, when people go through it and they get to that part where they're making amends and they're cleaning out their heart, they become addicted to a clean heart. I guess
Mhm.
is the only way I can say it. And it's a really difficult process to go through. And yet, when they're making those changes, they feel wonderful. And we talk about how hard it is to actually make changes, how hard it is to actually do the work. And it's easier to tell somebody to change, to tell somebody else to do it, than it is to make the change yourself, right?
I think about
And
there's a poem. Oh, I'm sorry. Go
no,
ahead.
go ahead.
There's a poem that I use often in treatment called The Autobiography in Five Short Chapters. And that's talking about, in my opinion, the process of change. Because it's talking about I walk down the street and I fall in the hole, and I get out, or it takes me a long time to get out. And it's just 5 steps. It's not one day you think about it and the next day you do it. You go through this process that includes continuing to make mistakes sometimes until you get it right. And so that's the other part. Some people are so fearful of change because their expectations that they have is they want to see results immediately. That kind of microwave generation that we're in. I want to think about it and the next day I want it done. And it doesn't work like that. You've got to be able to give yourself time and patience. So I like the 12-step model because the moral inventory that you're talking about is actually step 4. So they got
Mhm.
3 steps to do before they even get to step 4. So it's
Yeah.
like being able to look at these things as a process is great.
Mhm. And we can talk about that in developing integrity, is developing some sort of process, whatever process you want to use in developing integrity. And what that means is just something where you can become the person that you say you are. And it's a lifetime process. And I help people to understand that is what I'm teaching you how to do, is how to implement personal growth in your life so that you can use it from here on out and make it a lifetime process and something that you're just comfortable doing all the time.
Mhm.
And I think that that's really important. One of the things that creates a personality disorder is if a person doesn't have a feedback loop, they don't have a way to
Mhm.
grow or to take feedback from the world around them. And
Mhm.
then that's what creates a personality disorder, when the personality gets set and there's no way to grow and then people stop growing.
Mhm.
But if you have a feedback loop and you have a way to take feedback and grow and use it, then your personality continues to mature and to change throughout the course of your life. And that's really all you need, is a method of some sort, right?
Yeah, yep, I agree. Having that method. The other part is, so what we're talking about, if you would hear us say it in clinical terms, is building an appropriate self awareness because many people are just living and they don't even really know what their behavior means. if that makes sense. They're just doing things, or they're doing what they're used to, or they're doing what feels normal to them because they've been doing it for so long, even if it's unhealthy. And if you say, well, if you have, this is that kind of thing, I think, and you can maybe help me with a better example, but the one that just popped into my head is, if the doctor tells me I'm diabetic, but every morning I believe it's okay to have a donut with my cup of coffee, I'm not being very self-aware. Thank you for joining us for It's All in Your Head podcast. Remember to subscribe, like, share, and please comment. Whatever mental health questions you have, we will be happy to answer them in future podcasts.
So Tara, we were talking earlier about how there's a flip side to this. Tell me about this imposter syndrome.
So I'm seeing this a lot with what I call my millennial clients, and it's mainly my millennial African-American clients who have achieved great things through their education, through their professional life, and they feel like though they've done all of these things, but they kind of don't feel like they deserve to be where they are, even though they've done all the work. So the imposter piece feels like they have this anxiety that comes with them feeling like I'm not supposed to be where I am and I'm going to be found out at any moment. So that's where the mental health part of it comes in. But for some reason, they can go to prestigious universities. They can find themselves in their dream jobs. And this is what they feel like. So they're not really enjoying where they've gotten to, even though they've aspired to be at these places in their life. They're not enjoying it because they have all this anxiety that goes along with them feeling like they don't deserve to be where they are.
Mm-hmm. So how do you help people with that?
I tell them to reality test. What job do you have? They'll answer, how did you get that job? What makes you qualified for that job? I mean, it's very basic, and they can answer those questions. Then I teach them to remind themselves of that when they start to have those feelings that crop up.
Okay.
Remind yourself you've done this work. I've even had an attorney who was Harvard educated, who couldn't understand why people wanted to give her government contracts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's talk this through. And so just being able to help them see it in a different way has been very helpful. And again, teaching them to reality test, always teaching them to affirm themselves, because also it's kind of like that. I'm looking for this outside recognition, but I also have this thing where I don't want people to look at me because I have this anxiety that they're going to see me for, they say, who I am, which they believe is somehow less, when the person that they're seeing is really very qualified and adequate and should be exactly where they are.
Mm-hmm. You know, I've had this problem in my life too, where I've felt that too at times, like why have, why me? Why am I here? Why have I accomplished these things and don't feel worthy of it? And I have to remind myself that even people throughout history who've accomplished great things were still just human beings with a collection of strengths and weaknesses. It doesn't mean their weaknesses went away just because they accomplished great things. And I have to remind myself that it doesn't mean that just because I accomplished great things, my weaknesses went away or had to go away. And that's the part that I've had to do for me.
So define what you mean by weaknesses.
Well, everybody has them. Everybody has strengths and weaknesses. I still have my weaknesses. And even though I've accomplished great things, in my life, especially this last year, both of us have accomplished some really great things we hadn't thought we would accomplish. And, um, I'm still me. I'm still that person who sometimes gets depressed, and sometimes I get overtired, and sometimes I'm irritable, and sometimes I'm not completely happy with certain things. And I still have my weaknesses. Sometimes I make stupid decisions, and stuff like that. That's just human. That's just part of the human experience. And just because I've accomplished great things doesn't mean that all of my weaknesses were going to go away. And suddenly, in order to accomplish great things, I had to be perfect. I think that's what it is that we think that, or in my mind, I guess I thought that I had to be perfect in order to accomplish something. So when I accomplished it, if I wasn't perfect, then I wasn't worthy of it.
Right.
And yeah, does that make sense?
Uh-huh. And the
And
reason why I
so,
say that, and I want you to flesh it out and define it, is because, I'm going to I will reframe a box into a square, like, a circle into a square.
mhm,
Because the reality is, I would never say weaknesses. I would probably say opportunities for improvement or areas of growth that are needed. But there's nothing weak about you. So this is
mhm.
kind of how I encourage my clients, right? There's nothing weak about you. There's no way you would be able to do what you've done, look as good as you look doing it if there was weakness in you. So there's no way that that's possible. And so that's kind of some of the things that I do, just talking through that, because we've been taught so much that we we can make all these accomplishments and then there's one little blemish, and for some reason we make that the biggest thing.
Thing. Yeah.
Then we put all the accomplishments on the back burner, and I want to turn that thing on its head. Like, no, that's not how it should be. Yes,
Yeah.
the things that were wrong are true, but the things that were right are true also. And why should the wrong things carry more weight than the right thing?
Right. Now that's a good point because that's the thing is that and that'll work as we've talked about relationships in the past too. Your partner is also a collection of things that are compatible and things that are not, you
Mhm.
know? And we train our mind to look at the things that are compatible. And why can't we train our mind to look at the things inside of ourselves also that are working,
Mhm.
that are good and that are working right now, and take those things that we're still working on one at a time off the shelf and just
Mhm.
keep working, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Because
do
we
it.
don't ever give ourselves permission to quit. We got
Mhm.
to keep building the car while we're driving it. So we can make it good. We can make it good. We can build this car however we want to, put as many good bells and whistles into it as we want. It doesn't have to be the basic model. And some of us are so busy trying to get to the basic model that we forget that there's some add-ons that can come after that are still us too. We're just putting everything that God has given us on the inside of us into our lives and continuing to make it work for us.
Yeah, and that's what we've talked about as we're talking about integrity and it being like a lifetime process of really becoming on the inside who you are on the outside, and really having that be who I say I am, being who I what I do, and that it is a lifetime process, and that we're getting there in stages, and we're just getting better and better at it. And you can always have somebody help you, having a counselor help you, that kind of thing, and that you're just on a journey,
Mhm.
and the journey is the part to enjoy that journey rather than be constantly looking to that arrival. Like, I don't have to
Exactly.
constantly be looking for an arrival before I can enjoy myself. No, I can enjoy myself all the way along the way.
Mhm.
And I love that theory. I tell my clients about the theory of projection, and what that is that I can be perfect the way I am any given day. And then when I get irritated with someone else or my environment starts to make me feel irritated, I know that it's me that needs to change.
Mhm.
So my world is going to mirror for me, other people especially, and it's usually your spouse, will mirror for you your next area of growth. Because whatever is going on that I think is somebody else's fault it's about me. It's something inside of me that needs to change. Either I might need to set a boundary, I might need to ask for what I need, I might need to take care of my own needs or take care of myself. I might need to get away from that person. That might be the boundary, whatever it is, but it's me that needs to change. And all I have to do is pay attention to that, pay attention to how other people are bothering me and irritating me. And then I know it's my time to change. And I just need to figure out what it is. And then once I've made that change and I've made that growth, I go back to being okay with who I am for a while. Let's just be perfect for a while. And then the world starts to bother me again, or I get irritable or upset about something. And then I have to take a look inside, make some more growth, and go on from there. And really, that's all we have to do. And if we just keep going along like that, we're continually growing. And also at the same time, we get to have plateaus where we can just enjoy ourselves for a little while, enjoy being who we are. What do you think about that?
When you say that, that brings to mind, like, everyone's talking about social emotional development.
Mhm.
And it's very important. But in what you're saying, what I think about is starting a baseline. And I often give my clients, especially when they're new into treatment, an assignment that I call Know Yourself: the good, the bad, the ugly, and the indifferent. And I actually have them write out a list: their good qualities, bad qualities, ugly qualities, and those things that are indifferent. And when I say good, I'm like, the things that are good about you. Bad is what other people usually say about you that you believe.
Mhm.
Those ugly things are things that typically we only know and we don't share. And the indifferent things are things that just don't matter. How you wear your hair, the kind of clothes that you wear, what you like to eat, those kind of things, so that you can have a well-rounded view of yourself. And then the task is, when you see that in front of you, it's not to change it. It's to first accept 100% fully that it's you. Because
Mhm.
sometimes change is not needed right in the beginning. It's unconditional acceptance of who you are.
Right.
That can reduce some of your anxiety, because most of the time, again, especially if you're worried about being found out, you're gonna have that issue. So I'll tell people like this: well, give me an example of ugly, because nobody wants to deal with that. So I'll
Mhm.
say, for me, I'm the kind of person, because I think I am very nice, I will give you all the chances. But if you do something to me, I'm trying to trip you with my mind every time I see you. It's like, I don't like you. I know that that's me. So, because I'm like, I've given you chances, I'm nice. This is my view of myself. And I've had someone tell me before, I don't know if nice is the word I use to describe you. And I thought that was funny. So it's like, okay, but that's how I see me. And I know that about myself. So I can speak to it and I can address it in the moment when I start to feel those feelings. So it's just knowing yourself and then accepting who you are. And then I'll even go as far as to say, if you cannot accept yourself 100% fully, you don't even have the right to make changes.
Oh, okay. I like it. Tell me more about that.
That's it. That's really it. So it forces you to do a deep dive into yourself. And you can't just stay on the surface. And
Yeah.
some people don't like themselves very much once they start that process. And we work through the anxiety that builds up,
Mhm.
because you don't have to hide it, just own it. It's you.
So what you're saying then, and what we're trying to say here, is that in order to really get to this place of integrity, it involves some self-acceptance. It involves also acceptance that at times change is needed, and feedback is okay. It's okay to take feedback from other people. Also, what we're really trying to do is just go on a lifetime journey of personal growth. And in that process of personal growth, we just want to make sure that we accept ourselves. And at the same time, we take a few things down at a time and work on them.
Yeah. That constant growth, that constant work, that what I call building the car while I'm driving it. Thank you for joining us for episode 17 of It's All in Your Head podcast. And remember,
Mental health matters.
and if you don't deal with your stuff, it's going to deal with you. Bye-bye.
Bye.